afford that, he says. That's way too expensive. Can you not do it for anything cheaper? He says, why is it so expensive? He says, well, because he was an English dentist, you see. And he says, well, he says, it's to do with the potency of the anaesthetic these days. It's very, very good, but it's expensive, and that's why it's £150. Why, he says, that's too much for me. He says, I can't afford that. He says, can you do it any cheaper? He says, no, I can't. He says, I'm very sorry. He says, well, can you not do it with half the anaesthetic? And the dentist says, well, no. He says, I wouldn't recommend it. He said, I probably could do, he says, but I wouldn't recommend it because it would be extremely painful, because it is painful when you start touching these teeth at the back. And Denzel said, Denzel's cousin said, well, if you did it with half the anaesthetic, he said, what would you charge? And he said, well, he said, I could probably do it for £100. What? He says, £100 for one tooth? He says, way too expensive for me, he says. I can't afford that, he says. What if you did it with no anaesthetic at all? Well, the dentist went white, said, I couldn't do it without any anaesthetic. I said, it would be so painful. He said, it'd be so painful, he said. You could probably die of shock. He says, well, he says, no, he says, can you do it without the anaesthetic? Well, he said, I don't know, he said, I'd have to think about it. He said, well, come on, can you do it for less than £100? He said, well, I'll do you then no anaesthetic. He said, £5. He says, £5 for one tooth? He says, yeah, £5. He says, great. He says, I'll make an appointment for my wife tomorrow.
Oh, jeez. You had me going there.